Hi, everybody, and thank you for the introduction. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge all the other speakers here today. It is such an important cause, mental health generally, particularly acknowledge RUOK and the FBAA for coordinating this event. And a little bit about me, just before I go to my slideshow. My name is Ash Plaisted, as you can see. I have been in the financial services industry my entire life, working life, which spans, this is my 39th year, the last 24, 25 years, particularly in mortgage broking, having started, built and exited multiple different mortgage businesses. I guess it's fair to say I've lived and breathed every aspect of the mortgage industry, the mortgage cycle from A to Z, finding customers, building a business, hiring people, winning the business, and building out volumes and teams to handle that volume, and then exiting the business at a later date. I've been coaching mortgage brokers pretty much my entire broking life, 25 years, but particularly as a professional coach the last few years. Now, obviously, the subject matter of today is very close to my heart, the mental health of brokers. It's really something I'm passionate about improving, and it's great to have the opportunity to be here with you all today. So if you just bear with me, I will now screen share my slideshow and get into my subject matter here. So will just give me 2 seconds while we screen share, and we'll wait for the magic of the internet to kick in. There we go. All right, so I want to talk today about something that we coach about in our broker coaching business called the 10X Broker, but in particular, it's relevant here today, and that is the Olympian model. Particularly relevant, of course, because we've just, it's going through the Olympics and Paralympics, and all of these individual people, all these sports people, all these athletes, whilst they are running in either individual or team events or competing in team events, it's not just them. As you guys would probably no doubt be aware, most athletes are always commenting and thanking and acknowledging the team of people around them. It's something that we put a bit of research into understanding what does the Olympian model of team look like for an Olympian athlete. And we found a heck of a lot of relevance and overlay to building a mortgage business and the structure that can be built around you to see you through that journey. So hence the Olympic rings on the screen. There's five areas of the team that I want to talk about briefly today. It is a team effort. That is my key theme, my key message, that building and maintaining good mental health and having the tools around you in order to self-correct when you need to, as we all move up and down this continuum of this thing we call mental health. So the 5 main teams, or the 5 teams that comprise the Olympic model team, firstly, your inner, and I'll go into these in a little bit more detail on the next slide, but your inner team, that's essentially your mindset, that's yourself, that's what goes on inside your mind and your thoughts. There's your staff, that's essentially your business, the people that work for you inside your business, both direct staff and suppliers. There's the person we call the confidant, that is the one, that's the person that you can tell anything to. Now, this can be a family member, a loved one, a partner, a friend, pretty much anybody who you have this total trust relationship with and you can tell anything to. Then we have what we call the club. That's essentially your community. So in sporting parlance, that would be your football club. In an Olympic athlete, that would be your other athletes training in your community and the wider support and club community. In our everyday life, that could be a social committee such as your Apex or Rotaries. It could be a sporting body you're a part of. It can be the mates that you hang out with on the golf course on a Saturday, or that you go walking with every day. This is your community that is built around you. And then the last one, the 5th, is what we're calling advice. This is your strategic team. This is the people around you that coach, guide, point you in the right direction, that have got the expertise, the specific skill set, the lived experience to help you build out the strategy that is going to most effectively get you to your goals, whatever those goals may be. So they are the 5 teams that make up the Olympic model, or the Olympian model. Now, if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about each of these 5 teams. And then I want to draw the discussion to a bit of a summary that I hope makes sense to everybody. So I said earlier that the first part of the 5 teams is you. This is the inner. And this is what we would summarize as your mindset, your self-talk, how you speak to yourself, that inner critic, what's the relationship you have inside your own head with yourself? And then what about the stories that we tell ourselves about the experiences, as I've said there, the response we have to events as opposed to the event themselves. The key thing here is, what are the stories we tell ourselves about the events in our lives, whether they be little things or big things? That's a really important of your inner team, is how you pivot to stories you tell yourself about what happens to you rather than what actually happens to you. And then the last one I'm calling a strategy and purpose. So this is the alignment between what drives you as an individual, what your sort of true nature is as a person, what motivates you, and the strategy that you're pursuing as a business. Is it just about money, or is it about having an impact? Is it about freeing up time to spend more time with your family or loved ones, or on other causes that you're passionate about? How do all these things align together? And is the strategy that you're pursuing aligned with your purpose? So that's the inner team, number 1. Number 2, the people in your business. So your team. Okay, so there's things, big picture subject matter here, such as culture and values. Now, these are super important things that are generally the result of going through a process to build the right people in your team, as opposed to building a culture without people and then trying to attract people to that culture. So generally, culture and values are what's important to you as a business owner. What do you communicate to your team about how you go about your business? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Obviously, clients are at the center of that. We know that. You're building everything around a client-centric approach. But what are the values that are important to you and your team about feeling needed, feeling purposeful, feeling valued and recognized, and being able to contribute in a non-judgmental way to the decision-making and the structure of the business? What is the culture around those things from you as a leader? How do you manage delegation and trust? What systems and processes have you got in place in your business to be able to delegate and completely trust your team to perform their duty, but also to have some performance management structures in place to, for staff to know that there is accountability and responsibility to performing to a certain standard. And then there's another part of this that I call unconscious motivators. Is what are you doing with your team when you bring team on, or if you've already got them, to truly understand what motivates that person as an individual? Because often when you hire people, I'll tell you, I think we'd all be, or have had experience of this, is what people tell you is often what they think you need to hear in order for them to get the job. But what actually motivates them as a person is hidden beneath. So do you have a process to really get to the heart of what motivates your staff? Are they motivated by money? Are they motivated by recognition? Are they extroverted or introverted? Do they like prestige, or do they like being a cog in the machine? Are they salespeople, entrepreneurial, or are they more operators and technicians? What is it that motivates your team? It's really important to know when you're building a team that you attract and engage the right people based on understanding how they work together with other team members and you. That's a very important part of building the right mindset, the right mental health framework inside your business. Now, the next one, the confidant. This is a really interesting one. I think it's very important in life to have one person, maybe a couple of people that you feel that you can tell anything to. Now, this can be your partner, this can be your friend, this can be a non-family member, this could be someone who is a coach, potentially. It could be a lifelong friend. It's any of those. That is somebody who you can tell everything to in a non-judgmental way, but who also not just listen to you, they'll cheerlead for you, but they'll also be honest with you. And they'll also hold you accountable. They're the one that you can go to when you're feeling vulnerable, or that you've got ideas that you're not sure about, that you can just have those really honest discussions in a private framework where you know that what you say to that person is held in complete trust, almost like a confessional, if you like. Not that I've ever been to confession, but that confessional type relationship where you can tell anything to the other person and get some feedback and just be listened to. And often they can see potentially what you're blind to. They can see your blind spots. Then we've got the club. So the club, again, a really interesting one. This is the community of people around you. These are the people that you feel like you're part of something bigger. This is the group that you work together with. Now, in the mortgage industry, it can be very lonely, right? Even though it's a big industry and there's lots of participants and stakeholders, we all know that as you're out there trying to get a business up and running and, cover your bills, make money, provide for your family, look after your customers, and deal with all of the day-to-day requirements and challenges in the industry, very difficult to feel isolated and alone. So it's very, very important to have this community, this wider community of other mortgage brokers, people that you can communicate with on the same level. Outside of the mortgage industry, of course, a good example would be a sporting club. I call it the third world. You've got your home life, you've often got your business life, but what is your other life, your third life, which is your community? Now, for some people, that's a sporting group. For some people, that's charity. For some, it's being part of a social cause. For others, it could be an exercise group. You've only got to go out on any given weekend and see all the people riding bikes together or jogging together. Pre-COVID, obviously, but hopefully we get back to those times sooner rather than later, where you've got a common interest, and it can be non-business in that environment, but it can also have business overlay as well. But I know, for me personally, mine's always been sporting, and to a later part of life, it's almost like the cafe culture where you see the same people and you have these conversations and you feel part of a community, socially connected. They're really important to build a community. I know we're going through these difficult times with everything being Zoom-based, but it's still important to build relationships, and we are in the relationship industry. But importantly, for yourself, for your mental health, your club or your community around you forms a very important part of your overall team framework. Then lastly, we've got the advice. This is the strategic advice to keep you on track based on real experience. It's an honest, expertise-based relationship with either coaches or business connections or other external support structures that are fully aware of your business goals, and they're there to help you map out the right strategy and stay on track to that strategy to achieve your goals. Now, an example of this would be, if you're wanting to get fit or lose weight, or build a six-pack. It's not that difficult to work out what you've got to do, right, in order to achieve the outcome. But the bit that is often forgotten is having somebody there with you, almost that personal trainer who's aware of your goals, who can keep you on track, who is not emotionally connected and biased because they're standing a little bit apart. So it's a very important part of having the right team together to keep your mental health on an equilibrium, that if you get off track, that you can always turn to your strategic advisor to stay on track. And they also should be very, very good at keeping you on the right path amongst all the paths that you could follow, or the one path, as I've called it here. and they also are the anti-SOS. They should be the SOS cure. And if you're wondering what SOS stands for, it is shiny object syndrome, which is often where we end up when we're getting, multiple directions, multiple bits of advice and suggestions, and being pulled this way and that as to what we should do. Having the right strategic advisor can help you stay really focused and on track. So I hope that really makes sense. I'd like to now just quickly summarise with a couple of drawings, and if you'll bear with me, I will attempt to draw on the page, just bear with me, a bit of a summary. So we know that we've got the inner, we spoke about, we've got the staff, we've got the community, we've got your confidant, and we've got your strategic advisor, right? Now that's your team, the 5 rings, the 5 teams. But here's the thing, it's always still going to be you that runs the race, right? You've got all of these support structures, right? But we know it's still you that's running the race, okay? That's critical. But very important to have a team around you. You could think of a lot of different examples of where this applies, whether it's a golfer, a tennis player, an athlete. It applies equally to a business owner. You need a team of people around you fulfilling different functions in order for you to run the race to the best of your ability. And the race here is very, very strongly connected to your mental health. So if we were to put this little line in here, here's the race, you still have to run. You run the race, but the team behind you is part of your support team that ensures that you do that most effectively and with your mental health on a balanced equilibrium. And lastly, but not leastly, that's a word, we want to represent your mental health and performance outcomes with the 5 teams and without. You try to do this on your own, which I'm sure you've all experienced, you're essentially looking at this type of outcome, right? Whereas if you do it with the support team, with people around you that you can turn to, your own mindset is properly built, your staff on board, the culture's right, the values right, the purpose is right, you've got the right people in your business, you've got your community, and you've got your advisor. So you've got your team around you. Well, the difference is, yes, you still have dips, but you're in this direction. It's a big difference between having peaks and troughs moving upwards versus peaks and troughs moving downwards. So I thought I would just leave it with that simple summary. When you get the 5 teams around you with the same skill and knowledge, well, this is not about having better skills or better knowledge. This is about having the right support structure that supports good mental health. We go this direction versus the other direction. So the Olympian model, I hope you got some good tips out of this and some direction to go forward with starting to build your Olympian model team. I'm more than happy to answer questions at the end if anybody has any. Thank you very much.